Yeah, it's indoor. That's exactly right. I was like, this is not soccer. What are you doing to my game? Get off my lawn.
But now we're talking indoor. John's favorite game. You just took John's tone.
I know. I'm crying because I hate it.
You did start sounding like a little bit of, you had a little John.
Yeah. Woo. Ooh. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90. Go shop at soccer90.com for all your FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. And you, the lovable Third Degree listener, gets 25% off your order when you use the code Third Degree at checkout on soccer90.com. Well, hello there, FC Dallas curious fan. Welcome to another edition of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi. For those new here, I'm Peter, and joining me, first off, the happiest boy in all the soccer land, going to his first major finals, it is Dan Crooke.
It's coming home.
I was waiting to see if that's what you would say, Mr. Cliche.
It's coming home.
Are you just as giddy as a schoolgirl?
It's coming home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it a penalty?
I mean, it was fouled twice before going down. The one on Kane that was a no call was definitely more of a penalty.
Stop. Okay. Was it a penalty?
By the letter of the law, yes.
Okay.
And the free kick technically shouldn't have counted. The ball was too close. But, you know.
See, I haven't seen a definitive image to show me that they're not a yard forward from it. I know they're closer than a yard left or right, but I think there's an optical illusion going on there, Daniel. But nonetheless, England were the better team and deserved to win. No doubt about it.
Yes. It's coming home.
And Italy-England will be fantastic. Shithousery all the way around.
We've played our final. We won our final. We're going to leave it at that. Okay?
Just getting past the semifinal is winning your final?
Yeah, we've lost so many semifinals.
That's true. You have. It was funny. You are from England, one of the greatest powerhouses of the sport, and you've never been to a major tournament final in your lifetime.
That's true. Nobody under the age of 65 has seen England at a major tournament final.
Did you shed a little British tear at all when it happened?
No, it's more of a little English shriek. There were many British tears, the Scottish ones, the Welsh ones, the Northern Irish ones.
That's true,
but,
okay.
Not the English.
Sorry, I didn't get my nomenclature correct. And also, the giggling in the background you hear is from your hero and mine, the amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hi, Peter. I'm definitely cheering for Messi and for Dan. So that's... Yeah.
So you're going for
those are similar.
Yeah.
in a whole host of ways.
Yeah.
Career success, financial success.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind being $1 behind him.
Yes.
$1, just $1. So you're going for the Argentina-England double. Is that your parlay?
Yeah. I mean, I love Messi, and I want him to win something at least big-ish, and I've always enjoyed Argentina. And I want Dan, I got no bones in these games. I'd love for Dan's country to win. I will say that since the Euro 96, I particularly liked that specific English team with Gaza and Shearer and those guys. And I mean, that was a fun team. I'm not like all in on England all the time, but in this particular case, I mean, versus Italy, I mean, what the heck? Go Dan, go England. So
yeah, go me.
Yeah.
Go you. Well, congratulations, Dan. We're all very pleased for you and the nation, and maybe just hopefully it will actually come home. All right, now, unfortunately, meanwhile, back in Frisco, it has been the return of the awful, as is noted and tracked by the original fan, Dustin Christman. Yeah, whatever. Also known as El Jefe.
Yeah.
Dallas continues on a pace after 11 games of only 2 points ahead of this club's most historically bad season of all time. the hellscape that was 2003 and Southlake. And man, I got to tell you, if there's one aspect out of this that really has started to bother me more than anything else, because it is a bad season, and we've seen this team have bad seasons, and we've seen them have good seasons. But in light of the fact that this is Luchi's third season, and it's all gone so very backwards from where it was when he got the team, are either one of you surprised or bothered as much as I am over the fact that neither Zanotta or Dan Hunt have been out publicly speaking about what's going on and kind of leaving Luchi out to hang out to dry?
I had not noticed that, but I do see what you're saying. It does bother me, actually, now that you say it a little bit. I don't know that maybe that's a sign that they're happy with what's going on. I mean, it's crazy.
That's not possible, right?
I mean,
there's no way that could be true.
Well, I did talk to one person who was sitting in the stadium near Zanotta, and they said that based on his body language and the fact he was occasionally holding his head in his hands, that they are not at all happy with how it's going. But that's a little hearsay. I mean, whatever that's worth.
You mean this happened last night or the game over the weekend?
The Vancouver game, yeah. So, I mean, listen, there's no way they can be happy. Zanotta is not much of a public talker. I mean, I could probably count on one hand the number of times that they've made him available to media and put him out there. I mean, who covers this team other than us and the team itself? So they're not going to put their own people, Dan Hunt and Zanotta, out in front of stories and stuff. I mean, nobody else really covers the team.
Yeah, I kind of get the Zanotta thing because he probably doesn't speak superior English. And again, to your point, he's not somebody that, they probably feel comfortable putting out in front of public. And while I certainly am confident that they're also not, they don't feel great about putting Dan out in front of in front of the media on a regular basis because he's just not good at it. Somebody's got to come out and say something. And I'm not even looking for the generic cliche, full support from ownership of the manager, but just kind of the overall state of what's going on because, they didn't hire a guy that came in with a transformative plan. They hired a guy to kind of take over and learn on the job. And so if anybody needs support from his superiors publicly, it's Luchi, right?
Well, number one is Zanotta went to high school in Arlington, so his English is actually perfectly good. He's like a native, basically.
Okay.
But also,
now I'm really wondering why he's not out talking.
Yeah, no,
I didn't think.
Yeah, he worked for traffic in Miami too. You remember? I mean, his guys.
Oh, that's true.
He might as well be an American. I mean, he's not, but he might as well be. And the other thing is that you and I both know that Dan Hunt doesn't really make decisions. So you're not going to put him out there. The only one you really need to worry about is if Clark Hunt shows up and goes out in front of the mic. Then there's a problem. So I honestly, if you look at what we're going to talk about later is the upcoming transfer window, I'm sure they're pretty happy. Big picture, right? This is the new model.
Well, yeah, but okay. So then I guess that means that just works under the assumption that the ongoing conspiracy perception of the fan base that the Hunts really just don't care as long as they continue to sell players. You actually buy into that?
Well, I buy into it maybe halfway. I think the other side of the coin is they know that this roster is not very good. So what are you going to do? Come out and be like, oh, yeah, we have confidence in our coach, the dreaded vote of confidence, right? That means that you don't have confidence. So they're probably just waiting for Luchi to, do what he wants to do.
Would you say, Dan?
I mean, Buzz is completely correct. Nobody wants the vote of confidence. It's the kiss of death. And this is FC Dallas. They don't talk unless they absolutely need to. They don't want to say too much or give away too much. So, just keeping quiet and just, letting Luchi do his obligations and say, we're working to change things every week. That's going to be the minimum they do.
Yeah, but again, this kind of gets back to my original point and question, which is, and I think I'm on the record as saying, I really like Luchi as a human being, but from day one, I was adamantly against his hiring for this job for all the reasons we've talked about ad nauseum. But I got to say, leaving Luchi out to be the single point person to answer questions with the media, even as limited as that is a total BS move on Dan Hunt's part to do, because it is not reflective of the situation that Luchi has gotten himself into. Again, Luchi knew this job was dangerous when he took it, right?
Oh, yeah.
If your story is correct, Buzz, he pitched himself and sold himself on them to give him this job. So, he's in a situation of his own making in many ways, but goodness gracious, somebody's got to step up and help the cat out. Talk about how they're going to fix this, what the plan is, X, Y, and Z. And all we're getting now are these really sad, pathetic, overly worded, Luchi just kind of grasping at straw sports cliche press conferences, while the team now has officially won only 2 games, collected only 10 points at home after a lot of games, and have yet to win on the road, and again are on pace to be almost as bad as the club's worst season in its history.
Yeah, one of the big problems is that the 2003 meltdown had a direct cause, whereas this one is just a product of roster decisions, coaching decisions, owner decisions. I mean, this is a collective triumvirate that has led us to this point. I don't think any of those guys want to get out in front of a camera and get blasted because all of them have not done a good enough job. So, if Dan goes out in front of a camera or Zanotta goes out in front of a camera, people can start asking him about Frank O'Hara. They're going to start asking about these other players that have underachieved that they brought in at signings. No one's going to ask him about Luchi, right? I mean, we've known for 3 years what Luchi was. We knew he got hired too soon. We still like him. That doesn't mean that we think he's in over his head or not. So no one's going to ask about that. Everybody knows. It's like they're going to ask him about the other stuff, and they don't want to have to deal with that. So that's why they're not out.
Well, I certainly feel like, since I'm being told all the time that there's a kick-ass social media team and a kick-ass media team and a kick-ass public relations team and a kick-ass...
Who said that?
Well, the club does, right? Like, we're always being told how they have the best of all those things. And my response is, somebody needs to be smart enough to go to Dan and say, hey, this would be a really good opportunity for you to put out a tweet or a press release or a video or something and just help a cat out, because they're screwing Luchi. And I'm a huge Luchi critic for the job, not as a person, again. But at this point, it's pathetic in the way the club is handling this whole situation. It's really embarrassing, frankly.
I've really got to disagree with you. The second that you put out any message of support, you're saying that he's not good at his job, and you're missing my. I'm sorry, I'm not explaining. You're not missing anything. I'm not explaining it. I'm not saying that Dan Hunt needs to come out and say we support Luchi. What Dan Hunt needs to come out and say is, look, we understand that things are bad right now, but we do have a plan to make this better. And the plan includes Luchi and Zanotta and signing these types of players, X, Y, and Z. And they need to clearly dictate how all of this positivity around selling kids to German teams and teams in Austria or wherever else on the globe all fits in as part of the plan. Because that's where I think the communications is missing. You're right, Dan. That's what I'm saying. You're 100% right there. No, you're spot on. They do need to sort of say the ship as a whole, because, the notion of, I mean, we're talking about now, are they not selling Che at the minute because they need him in the first team? We're getting down to that point that, it's not crossing the line. It's not being a Mark Cuban or a Jerry Jones if he then comes out and, does a me thing, but saying, hey, season ticket holders that are walking away, sponsors that are walking away, because I don't know if you noticed, but in the off season, 2 of their main sponsors took a significant downgrade in who they were replaced by. And
who was that?
Chase, one of the world's biggest banks, was replaced by UMB. Massive downgrade. And you've got Elephant Insurance being replaced by the Gallagher Group. I don't know too much about the Gallagher Group, but they're certainly not, plastered around everywhere like Elephant is. It just seems like their entire level of sponsor just, other than, when they got, after they got Chick-fil-A, everything has seemed to reduce in stature somewhat. So And we can talk about the whys and why nots, but there's not one thing trending positively other than social media. Because they do have a great social media guy, and that seems to be the only positive thing to come out of the season so far.
The only thing I would contribute is what you're saying, Peter, and I agree with you, is that I'd like them to include a little my bads as well, like to admit that they've screwed up the roster a little bit and they need to make some changes and get things in the right direction. Because if you just come out and just say, yeah, our go team, we got a plan, I don't think anyone's going to listen to that. And someone's going to have to contribute a little bit of their own fault,
Yeah,
nice.
and so and we're going to talk about the two games specifically here in a second, but I do want to lead into kind of like, which is the number one question that I'm getting asked, and Buzz, you're getting asked it, and I'm sure Dan's getting asked by his friends, which is, what is the status of Luchi? Which we can address a little bit, but what I really want to figure out, because this has been kind of the running conspiracy in my head, which is I don't know how much Zanotta it has grown an influence inside this club. And I've been thinking in the back of my head that he's quietly been saying to Dan and Clark, well, I got a guy from South America that would be perfect for this job that's got a lot of experience. But I do have to wonder, where is Zanotta's stature in the club based on how terrible Vargas has turned out, how terrible O'Brien has turned out to be? Faco, I still can't tell you what he's good or bad at, and I'm not sure that's his fault, right? Because the team's just so bad. They spent all this money to get the Philippe guy that's just sitting on his ass doing nothing, and they can't sell him because he's a fat ass, or was.
He was.
X, Y, and Z, and all the other players that Zanotta, has trickled in that have turned into nothing. So for all the ideas that maybe he's got some sort of influence over a replacement coach, is he in trouble? So do we have any idea about his status and in the club and Luchi's related status?
No. The problem is that this organization has two owners, and they both run the team in the sense that Dan is president and Clark is, while he's not here, they don't make big decisions without Clark. So it's different if the organization has presidents and GMs and VPs that are all here and aren't the owner, and they all are working in their own self-interest and they're all leaking stuff. Well, that's not the case. These two dudes own the team. No one's firing them.
Right.
So they're not going to tell anybody squat. So anyone that says that they know is lying. Now, around the team, people that work for the team, people that cover the team, we all think and they all think that Luchi's in trouble. But we're all just guessing based on the results. Now, same thing with Zanotta. You look at the pieces Zanotta's brought in. The only one I like is Martinez. The rest of them, Philippe's okay when he gets to play, but he's not as good as Jimmy. So it's like, why are we bothering with most of these signings? Most of these signings are busts. Now, it's not a great track record. I don't know that anybody ever hits more than 30%, except for maybe Seattle. It's definitely not good enough. Now, do Dan and Clark think it's not good enough? I have no idea. If you're selling players and making them $1 million every player you sell, they might think it's great. And that's the thing, is we don't know. Yeah. Nobody knows except for those two guys.
What it's funny is this kind of came up in one of the little threads in the Discord the other day, and I distinctly remember a quote Zanotta made when he first joined the club, and it was something about, he specified, that he's here to help find players, their destinations abroad, to help sell. So if he's, if judging him to the Hunts at least is lopsided towards, who he sold how much for, he's got a permanent place in that employee of the quarter parking spot that's next to Dan Hunt's.
So if I had asked either one of you at the beginning of the season, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is completely safe and 10 is out the door, before the season, what number would you have applied to the Luchi hot seat? Buzz?
If 1 is completely safe, I would have said 2. I mean, there's always a chance someone's out, but as I've always said about him, he's the perfect confluence of Huntism.
Right.
He's the product of Oscar and Schellis, their two favorite people. He's a product of the academy, their favorite thing. I would have said he was as safe as one can be, since no one is ever perfectly safe.
All right. Dan, where would you have put the number?
Yeah, exactly as Buzz said.
All right.
That 1 to 2 range.
All right. After last night's ridiculousness, Buzz, where do you have that number now?
5-6, middle of the pack. I don't think he's in as much trouble right this minute as people would think. I think the Hunts don't like to waste money. And so firing a guy mid-season wastes money. Really does, because then you got to start hiring somebody now, and when that person is going to want to change staff and all these kinds of things. So short of a Steve Morrow national TV embarrassment or something like that, I think they'll ride it to the end of the season and then evaluate,
Okay. Dan?
I'd go with a 5. If you bring someone else in now, they're going to have to ride out the season. It's still going to be a terrible season overall, and that already sullies any new coach in the minds of the fans. And FC Dallas doesn't want to necessarily keep the fans happy, but they also want to keep them quiet.
All right, I'm going to be the contrarian here. Shocker. I'm going to say it's at a 9.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you why. The club, surprisingly, has had a rather successful season, at least in their world, in terms of attendance. They have, the July 4th game was essentially a sellout. They had a 16,000 the week before. I think the low this season was 14. They've been doing better attendance-wise than I anticipated. Cash is clearly an issue for this team at this time. And if this continues in this path and people stop coming to the games, that's going to be a real problem for the Hunts' bottom line, which is always what drives this. And if they could move Eric Quill up, or if Zanotta's got some Hispanic name to throw in there, that may do it. And by the way, Buzz, I got to think that Luchi's the cheapest coach in the league, so whatever they got to pay him off on is relatively low, and I think this is his last year of his contract anyway, isn't it?
I believe that's true, yeah.
So and I can't believe I'm saying this, and maybe 9's an extreme. I think the seat is hotter than you guys think it is, just simply because this could go off the rails super fast if they just let him drag it out to the end of the season. And they didn't even do that with Schellas, remember, and they love Schellas like a grandfather.
Oh, they let Schellas finish the season.
Did he?
They
did.
Yeah, there was no interim coach. The only last guy they fired mid-season was Morrow.
Oh, that's right. He did finish the season.
Yeah, listen, Jeffries got fired mid-season because South Lake was horrible. And listen, we're close, right? So that's legit. And then Morrow got fired mid-season after that debacle against LA, a national TV game. So, right, listen, the season Morrow got fired, they won 8 games. Schellas' last 2 years, they won 9 and 11. The South Lake season, they only won 6. And then the ties were also bad. So they had 19 losses, which is a huge disparity that season. So, they only pull the trigger when it's really historically awfully bad, which this is. Don't get me wrong. But on the cash front idea, and I think there's some validity there, Peter, I buy it. But also, on the 15th of July, the Reynolds sale goes through. And that's $7 million. 15th of July, right? Tessman just flew today to Venice. That's reportedly 3+.
Right.
Reggie's about to move, it reports are, to another club in France. That's a 40% sell-on.
Yeah, but have they even gotten the money from his original sale yet?
No, but if they bounce him on, then the cash comes in and maybe they get it. I'm just saying, like Che, if they hold to the winner, they might get 3-4 for Che. That's what they want, right?
You're saying the invoices are coming due.
Yeah, if Rich is just going to start the preseason with Bayern, but then the report was they were going to then bounce into Hoffenheim again. Well, if that sale happens, there's a sell on there. I'm just saying that, like, the idea that they're bleeding cash here, yeah, absolutely. But they're also about to have $15 million come in from sales that dwarfs the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
So I agree probably that they're not going to want to see it souse. I just think that short of a national embarrassment, they'll let it go till way later in the season, maybe even as far as we've talked about the schedule 3 times now, when they have four home games or 5 home games or whatever is between now and the end of September. So it's like, it's going to get darker and darker and darker since they can't win on the road. It's going to get brutal. So, I mean, it's going to get hotter from here on. I just think right now, I think I'm in the middle. I'm not 100% like where you are.
Yeah, no, those are all good comments. I was thinking about looking up when the next national TV game is, because that maybe that's the target date to look at. Because if your point is that it's a big, giant, nationally televised embarrassment, I'm trying to think of. Oh, they don't say in the schedule what channel the games are on. Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. So their next big one, they got a Unimos game against Salt Lake at the beginning of September.
Salt Lake's not that good. That won't be an embarrassment.
No, you know what? Here's what's working for Luchi. The team is so bad and so unpopular. They don't have any national games between now and
August.
There's an the game
Austin.
The Austin game that I'm going to be at that Andy and I are going to. Is the next national televised game.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll be there for Luchi's final game.
Maybe.
Poor Luchi. God, I feel bad for that guy. All right. Well, let's move on and talk about the components of which bring us to this point, which was, last episode we were celebrating a really kick-ass win against New England, who were leading the East at the time. But, man, things have turned ugly since then as, this is the most MLS thing ever. You beat the first-place team of the other conference, and then a few days later you end up literally struggling to tie the worst-place team in your own conference in Vancouver. And what a weird game that turned out to be.
Yeah, listen, the little system that Luchi's doing in order to try and ground out points, I think that system is actually working. But when you're a bad team, people switch off. They have moments. They lose accountability. They lose personal responsibility when you have a bad team.
So it's not working.
Well, the concept, the team concept and the tactic is working. What's not working is that individual players are not holding up their end of the deal. And both goals in Vancouver were an individual player making an individual mistake. And we're not to the LA game yet, but all 3 goals against LA were an individual player making an individual mistake. So in the context of Luchi and being fired, the thing he's trying to do is working. He's being let down again by his roster and his individual players. So that's my big takeaway from the Vancouver game is they outplayed Vancouver other than somebody let him down. He's missing guys. His roster's not good enough. That's the bottom line.
They outplayed Vancouver?
Yeah, I did think they outplayed Vancouver.
Dan, what did you think about that game?
No, I thought FC Dallas were lucky and weren't worth a point.
Yeah, I gotta say, Buzz, the real highlight, or the one thing that stuck out to me out of this game, which then leads into the game in LA last night, was there was 40 minutes, a continuation of about 45 minutes of Jesus really playing out of his mind. The goal that he created with Pepe was fantastic. It was a real get-out-of-your-chair kind of moment. It was really, really good. And then I think the rest of the league figured out how you shut down Jesus, and they just started to mark him really hard, and then he just wore out from that point on. And that was continued in his, miserable performance in LA last night. And because he singularly has been the only one creating anything on this team, the whole store shut down.
Yeah, well, I covered that in the instant reactions today. The problem is if you play in a mid to low block tactically, you still have to be aggressive. You cannot be passive. And when those wide wings are sitting back on top of the defense helping, which is what you want, if they don't then do their part of the responsibility, was to get forward into the side channels, then you end up with Pepe and Jesus on an island, and you see what you saw versus LA. They put 4 players around Pepe and 2 more guys in front of Jesus, and they boxed both those guys. Zip, nothing, shut out. That's not those 2 guys' fault. That's the fault of the players on your team not doing the job they're supposed to do. Like people talked about in the LA game, I was watching Twitters or whatever. They're like, wow, it was actually better when O'Brien came in. Why? Because O'Brien ran forward into the channel. So they had to mark somebody else for the first time all game, right? So it's like, again, it's the players play, right? Soccer for me is always the game where the coach has the least amount of influence on the game. It's all about the player. Like, you couldn't even coach up until, what was it, like the 70s? You had to stand over there and be quiet, right? Players on the field made all the adjustments. You only had like one sub. You couldn't change anything. It was all about the players. It's always been about the players. If your players aren't good enough, there's a reason why Klopp spent $270 million over the last 3 years to buy players. It's about the players. Players aren't good enough. If they're not going to do their job, they're not going to get forward, they're not going to be aggressive, nothing's going to happen. You're never going to score. There you go, LA Galaxy game.
All right. We didn't even get into the LA Galaxy game yet officially, but that's kind of what I wanted to ask you, Buzz, is did O'Brien actually make the case that he's not as bad as we think he is?
No, because he still wasn't very good, but he at least ran forward into that position. You know, I mean, Emma Tuamasi in the second half actually did this. It was before the second half, excuse me. There was a moment where, for some reason, they flipped Bressan and Tafari. Did you guys notice that?
Yes.
Right. The minute they did that, Justin Shea ran like 20 yards further up the field. And all of a sudden, Emma on that side ran like 20 more yards up the field. And then that side started working because they put Tafari over there, who's quicker and covers more ground and can cover up better, is my assumption. I don't know for sure. I didn't hear the press conference. So like that, the minute that change happened, that side got vertical, and Emma continued that in the second half, and O'Brien did that in the second half. So I'm not saying that O'Brien came in and said, look how good I am, I should start. I'm just saying at least he didn't just sit there doing nothing like they did for most of the first half. And that was the difference. That in LA, of course, was up 3 goals. But, you know.
So my intention was to do these things separately, but we've already turned it into a mashed potatoes of 2 really unfortunate results.
Yeah.
But the thing that really stood out last night in the LA game was, and maybe this is a byproduct of Cerrillo starting over Faco and Emma starting over O'Brien, but the LA midfield was just murdering Dallas throughout that game.
I want to hear what Dan thinks. By the way, really quickly on the Vancouver game, 17-5 on shots, 8-2 shots on target. Dallas 60% to 40% possession. They outplayed Vancouver. So the midfield, though, that part of the equation, to me, that I actually thought Cerrillo was fine. It was Acosta. Acosta took a game off. I thought he was terrible, and he got lifted at halftime because of it.
So, okay, so that was that. I did wonder that, and Dan, maybe you had some insight in this. Did Acosta get lifted because he was crap, or did he get lifted because there was some sort of deal set in advance to let him?
Well, he didn't track that runner. He was directly responsible for that goal.
He was dog shit. He didn't watch the runner on the goal. He barely moved out of the center circle for the entire first half. I mean, you know, you want the ball to get to Jesus. He's your man to feed the ball to Jesus, and he didn't do anything. He's got Edwin Cerrillo, who, you know, in that instance is out of his depth, trying to run the entire midfield on his own. It just wasn't going to happen.
So we got last year's Acosta back, is what you're saying.
Which is a shame because he's been amazing. He was terrible.
Okay, but here's what I want to know. Was it Brian's decision to stick around and play in this game? And if so, why would he do that performance? Or was he pressured into sticking around, and so to get back at everybody, he threw that crap turd out on the field?
I have no idea. Dan, what do you think?
Do we even know if Honduras camp started before today?
Well, MLS had him listed as out, and we were all under the impression that he was gone after the Vancouver game. At least I was.
Well, I was based purely on the fact that the US camp started on the 6th, but the US plays on the 10th, right? Or the 11th?
I think Honduras has a game before the US, actually.
Oh, I thought their first one was on the 13th.
Oh, maybe I got it wrong. The point being is that I think there was a lot of surprise players, even for LA.
Yeah, I mean,
of guys everybody assumed were leaving for camp. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know, but you know, I think that kind of ties into a point of, you know, was Acosta thinking more of the Gold Cup than LA Galaxy?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, based on his performance, either or I would. That would be a surprise based on how hard he's worked this year, right?
Yeah, it does not fit in with his desire this year, his stated desire. He publicly stated that he was bad last year and he had to do better and wanted to redeem himself. Well, this game was like last year, so it does not fit in with the profile, and it's not surprising he got yanked at halftime. I don't know with both Johnny, who's the other person who made a mistake. Both Johnny and Acosta got lifted at half. I don't know whether Luchi's turned the corner on. If you hose me, you're out. I mean, he's not really been that kind of guy.
Right.
He's pretty forgiving. But, and then Ryan did the same thing with that bone-headed head back, whatever that was.
Okay, but this is a good talking point. Let's also go back to the Vancouver game. Brisson makes that terrible marking or that terrible maneuver to lose the ball that gives up the easy goal. I don't even remember what the second mistake was in the Vancouver.
It was on a corner. It was a player got man.
Somebody got beat, and who was it?
It was Johnny Nelson.
It was Johnny Nelson again. Oh, jeez.
No, mate, no. It was
Nelson
Ryan
was
Hollingshead.
last. Okay.
It was Ryan. Yeah, right. Ryan back to. I remember thinking that when he did the header thing. So Ryan back-to-back games blew it. Yeah.
Between that corner and the one that LA scored, something occurred to me. When you watch those back, Nkosi Tafari is the kind of floating front post player. When you've got someone like Johnny Nelson marking whoever it was, you typically put your shorter players on the post, right? Not your tallest player, your best aerial guy, not marking.
Yeah, Johnny Nelson should not be man marking somebody. That's true.
I mean, that's a coaching mistake right there.
Well, since we're going to say that, Luchi doesn't do corners. Like in one of the staff delegations, I can't remember who it is.
Corner kick specialist.
Well, yeah, it's like he has assistants, and they all have different responsibilities, and one of them does corners. I can't remember which one it is. It's either Lucien or it's Mikey. I can't remember which one.
Is it the over celebrator? Because I don't know who that coach is that runs over and dog piles with the players after they score a goal.
Man, I hadn't noticed that. Who is it?
Oh, that's one of the trainers.
Yeah, I don't know who it is. I don't know his name. He seems to be an over celebrator in my book.
I mean, the thing is, they write it all out on the whiteboard in the dressing room. It doesn't matter if you delegate it or not. You've got to look at it and say, that is fucking dumb.
Fair. Yeah, fair.
Okay, but again, the reason why I bring all of this up is going back to Buzz's point, which is people have to take personal responsibility for their performance. And what we are seeing out of veteran players, this is a team that is filled with young, homegrowns, teenagers, etc. Yet the people that are making critically stupid errors are veteran players. Ryan Hollingshead, that corner kick for one in the Vancouver game, and then that whatever happened last night in LA is just like, okay, what's going on here?
Well, that's what I mean about switch offs happen. Like when things are going south, everything goes south. It all cascades, and guys get down and they all of a sudden they don't focus for just a moment, and that's all it takes. These things pile up on each other, and then all of a sudden somebody gets hurt that you weren't expecting to get hurt. Look, I mean, back in 2003, right? Jason Christ, Ronnie O'Brien. This year, it's Hedges. Now it's Martinez. It's all part of it. There's like a million things that cause you to be as bad as this team is. One of them is veterans switching off. The other is young guys not being in a job that they shouldn't be in too early. Like Justin Shea, right? As good as he looks as a prospect, like he gets better every game. He does so many things good. He's also good for 2 or 3 scorchings a game. So, everything, the fact you got to start a 17-year-old at right back is part of it. The fact that you got bust signings is part of it. There's a million things that led us to this moment, and there's lots and lots of responsibility to go around. It's front office, coaching staff, players' responsibility, all of it, man.
Yeah, a lot of the errors that are being made are, one of those things where you just worry that it's the downward spiral that you need a coach or a leader to pull it out of, and I don't know if that I don't think that exists in this locker room either amongst the roster or in the coaching staff. You can just tell by body language and these errors, these switch off errors, that people are just not it's not happening, and it seems unlikely to change. But what is really alarming to me, and this is where I think this is also a coaching thing. And again, I have to give credit to Mark Followell and Steve Davis, who are in a terrible situation as the play-by-play and analysis guys for the TV broadcast, because those guys are professionals. They see what's going on in front of them. They don't want to overly sugarcoat it, but they're also being paid by the club to be the presenters, and they're not in a position to be overly critical. But both of those guys have been very fairly critical in these last two broadcasts and calling out situations as needed in about the most professional way possible. But one of the things that they talked about a lot was, Mark even pointed this out. This is typically Steve's realm, but when Mark even starts pointing this stuff out, it's really alarming, which is this team's willingness to get a ball, kind of progress up the field, and then instantly freak out, stop, and play backwards or sideways. And there's just nobody on the team who wants to take a ball and progress it down the field.
Yeah, that comes back to that passivity that we were just talking about a little while ago, right? You can play in a mid to low block, but you have to, once you get it, think about how Oscar's teams played that way, mid to low block, right? And then counterpunch. When they got it, they went in a hurry. And this team doesn't do that. So Luchi has given up Luchi ball and switched to this more Oscar-style system, but because the team has got such a bad record and such a stink going on, it's not all working. And this idea that there's a whole bunch of things going wrong brings me back to an idea that I wanted to actually ask you about, Peter, and see what you think. If you're an owner and you're evaluating this team, and Dan too, I want to hear what you think. If you're evaluating this team, if I make a change now and a coaching change now, can this season be salvaged with the roster I have, with the injuries that I have, with the things that are going the way they are? So is there any point to me doing it now, or do I just sit on it and do it all this winter? I think that's part of the factor in whether you're going to make a call. Because I don't believe, and I want to hear what you guys think, I don't believe that there's enough talent on this roster to salvage this season if you change the coach.
Dan, you go first, please.
If you're the owner of FC Dallas, no. If you're the owner of Seattle in the same position, absolutely yes. It's you would have to clear house. You would have to have a couple of real nailed on targets that are going to pay off straight away. And other than that, otherwise it's just it's a lost season.
My answer is somewhat similar, Buzz. I do think there's enough components in here to make this work. If you got the right this is a complicated answer. To get the right guy that can pull this thing out of a nosedive means that you're going to go out and find a highly experienced, probably expensive coach, and to find somebody that's available in this moment is unlikely. But assuming that's available, then yeah, I think there's enough parts to make this work. I don't think the injury situation is, like 2003. They're not season-ending injuries. Martinez and Hedges, I assume, will be back in a couple of weeks, and you get those components back, and that feels a lot better. So I think there is an opportunity to salvage it. I just don't think the person to do that is available.
Now answer the question knowing that this is one of the lowest paid jobs in the league, and the Hunts have never hired somebody from outside the organization.
Well, that's exactly kind of the other that's the other point in all of this which is no matter if you think Luchi should be fired or not, and if he is, the thing that you have to remember in the back of your head is that the most aggressive the Hunts have ever been in getting a coach was when they paid an unknown amount of money to Colorado to get Oscar to come back. And we all assume that was somewhere in the ground. I've heard as low as $250,000, and I've heard as much as $500,000.
Yeah, but even he, technically outside the organization, still was a 15-year player here and a 7-year coach here.
Oh, sure,
and his family, as they like to say. So
we all conveniently forget that it wasn't like Oscar walked back into this job with an absolute mountain of experience himself, right? He'd only been doing it for a couple of years. Yeah, so I think you're right. I think that's that's the other thing that we all have to remember is that if they get rid of Luchi, the person that's going to take his job is probably Luchi Jr. It could be Eric Quill. It could be one of these, over celebrators on the sideline. It's not going to be Bruce Arena or Jose Mourinho or some, really well and experienced coach from South America. I just don't see it.
It'll be Quill, Lucene, or Ferruzzi. It'll be one of those three.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Wow.
Unless they've had a complete change of philosophy, if they really haven't had a complete change, and then Zanotta's boy from Gremio is the answer. But I don't know that that's. I mean, who knows, right? I guess we're gonna find out maybe at the end of the year.
Who knows? All right. So the other thing I wanted to comment on was, and this is going to come across wrong, but I was actually a little bit disappointed when Hara scored last night because I was all revved up with this stat that I wanted to point out, which was actually highlighted again by the aforementioned Steve and Mark, that up until Hara scoring that goal in LA, the only person on this team that had scored dating back to the Real Salt Lake game in the run of play was Ricardo Pepi. Did you know this?
Yeah,
yeah. And while I think it's cool that an 18-year-old kid is scoring goals for an MLS team, it's not neat that the only person scoring goals for an MLS team is an 18-year-old.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's been true of this team lately in the last few years is they've had a lot of defenders that would score. They've had a lot of midfielders have scored. They've got a lot of goal by committee. You know, we've always clamored for a 15-goal scorer. Maybe this is how you get it. It's only having one guy score, but it's not good. Something Hara almost blew it too.
Yeah, well, yeah. Did anybody think when he cleared the goalkeeper he was gonna muff it?
I thought, yeah, when he kicked it, I thought he muffed it, and then when
he just did that soft outside of the foot, and it looked like the defender was catching up to it.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I think we all thought he was about to Christian Coleman it to death.
I was disappointed he didn't let it go for another 10 minutes. He was so close to going 12 hours without a goal from the run of play.
Wow, that's bonkers. Yeah, and so Buzz, I'm interested. You know, I know you're talking about low blocks and being progressive, but there is something about what Jesus is doing right and is not doing right that clearly is some sort of on-off switch for them being even slightly dangerous.
Yeah, listen. Right now, Jesus and Pepe combo is the way to go forward. Now, if the other team is allowed to box Jesus and box Pepe, nothing will happen. So it doesn't matter what formation you use or what tactics you use. If you don't get somebody going forward in the other positions, then that'll happen and nothing will happen. Or Jesus, when that does happen, you've seen it. You notice Peter. He comes further and further and further and back trying to find the ball. And look how deep he was when he played that ball over the top to Franco Jara. Now that happened to work, but look how deep he was trying to find the ball and trying to find the game.
Yeah. And that was also just poor defense by LA's part too. Who, by the way, were missing their two starting center backs as well. So
it was. And if you're this bad, then I think you can already start talking about the future, and I think you can already play for the future. And so they need to be concentrating on guys that are going to be their pieces you build around. That's going to be Paxton. It's not yet, but it's going to be Paxton. It's going to be Jesus. It's going to be Pepe. This is the way forward. And some of these young guys have a little bit of scrap in them and a little bit of fight in them. Like the last couple of games, even like the Vancouver game, right? They kept going forward and they kept trying. They ended up getting an own goal to sort of tie it up late. And the positive is that Dallas has 5 ties already, which is more than they had, the same amount they had in all of 2003. My point being is that as bad as the record is, it's not quite the complete give up yet of 2003. There's still a little bit of fight in some of these young guys, you know, and that's, we try and live in the moment sometimes when we're analyzing, right? Big picture, this sucks. So let's try and see the little things that are going good. You got to love Jesus and Pepe. You got to love Justin Che's progression. I love Nkosi Tafari's progression. I love that Jimmy Maurer is still showing up every day and bringing it. I like that Ryan Hollingshead, even though he's had a couple of flake offs, he still is worth like a 95% of anybody else you can roll out there. You know, there are some, Edwin Surreal looked pretty good, you know, in his progression as he's coming along. Like I'm now willing to consider starting in the next game next to Faco or next to Cervania or whoever the hell they want to put in there. You know, there's little bitty moments of goodness that we can build on in this giant shitstorm of terrible.
Also known as Toyota Stadium.
Yeah, Toyota Stadium. Yeah.
So I am interested in you guys' opinions on Emma, who we've seen for the first time. I was really blown away when Steve and Mark commented this is his first time to play in a game or start or something, dating back to 2018. I had no idea he'd been with the club that long, and that he had been out in the Netherlands trying to like hone his game before he finally made it back. Were we pleased with his performance last night?
I'll go first. I thought the first 30 minutes or so, no, but then like the last 10 of the first half and then the part in the second half I thought was good. Dan?
Yeah, similarly. I mean, the majority of the first half was just terrible. I don't think it was, even worth singling out individual players there. There was just not enough of a collective success for anyone to look any good.
Yeah. The one thing that I do want to comment, because I've been a little critical of him since he started playing, was Nikosi, who, while I'm still not convinced is really good at passing the ball more than 10 yards, his defending has been really sharp of late. He's been winning some one-on-one battles and unlock, kind of breaking presses pretty well. So that's a really positive sign, and he's also got the jazziest hair on the team too. So, if I had to look for a silver lining out of all of this, is that we've gotten to see something good out of Nikosi Tafari.
I agree completely. Yep.
Yeah, he's best player against LA, and I know you said I know you're not a fan of his passing, but I thought his long balls against Vancouver were phenomenal. That was as good as anything Ziegler put up.
Okay, here's where I thought he lost me in the Vancouver game, and even Steve made comment of this, is that when they were working late to try to tie the game, instead of giving the ball to Ricarte, he was trying to do it himself when Ricarte's 5 yards away, and he should be giving the ball to Ricarte to do that. And this was very late in the game, and he shouldn't have been trying to put the balls into the box. It should have been somebody else. But that would be my harshest, most nitpick criticism.
I'd agree with that, and that's a pretty typical defender thing, right? The guy's looking for the long ball out, what he thinks is going to, putting yourself in a scenario, the long ball out the back, not really considering what's a few feet away. And that sort of thing's going to come in time. Obviously, Matt Hedges took a considerable amount of time just to get to that level of passing.
Yeah, context of the game aside, he was 12 for 15 on long balls in that game. Nikosi
okay,
was. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm pleased to hear that, because his first couple of games it was really, really shaky. Which leads me all to this particular question, which I can't quite figure out for the life of me, is what is going on with Ricarte? He didn't even get into the game last night. Did he anger Luchi? Has his game fallen off so much after all of us agreeing that it was him and Acosta keeping this thing together? I can't figure out where that guy just fell off the planet.
Well, I don't know if coach is mad at him. I'm going to try. That's one of my first questions when I can get back out there this week. I will say that in this particular setup, I don't know that like him in a double pivot in this 4-4-1-1 thing would be great. But my big hang up is that the 2 games before the international window, I loved what they were doing with the 8 with him, and it was before they were using Tanner as a 6, who's not a great 6, and they got a real 6, and then they went away from it. I was like, just put Faco in for Tanner and keep playing that way, because they were producing 29 and 30 shots or whatever it was for a couple of games there. I was like, oh, terrific, let's go, just get a 6 and put him in. And instead, the minute they got the 6, they dropped into this double pivot kind of thing. I was like, is Luchi so convinced that Faco can't be on an island by himself? He can't single 6? That's crazy. Why did you buy the guy if he can't single 6? Why did you give up on this formation that was producing so many opportunities? There's a big mystery there. Now, I get it in the sense that you're trying to grind out some results and you had to get some wins, maybe, but I don't understand why this is the route, other than that idea that like you're so desperate for points that you're going with this super defensive, stop the bleeding, which is not doing that either, but because of the individual stuff, they must have just decided that. I mean, I can't. Sometimes when I watch training, it's like Ricarte to me still looks like one of the best players on the team. I don't understand why he's not in the mix, but then I don't understand why Thomas Roberts isn't either, because Thomas Roberts looks great to me, and I don't, so sometimes I don't get it.
Well,
if you
put a
wanna
pin
kinda
in Thomas
draw-
Roberts because we'll talk about Thomas
Yeah.
Roberts here a little bit later.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to kind of draw it back to that double pivot and had that taking Ricardo out, Luchi did the same thing when Thiago Santos signed and said, he needs to be in a double pivot. He doesn't know the defensive scheme just yet. But, I mean, you've watched Quignon. His side-to-side movement and defending is fantastic. He is definitely a single six guy.
Yeah, I agree
doesn't,
completely. Yeah.
It's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
Were you guys surprised that he gave Faco the first half? I mean, was that a resting thing because he's new and the heat and all that stuff, or was that some sort of like statement thing to give Cerrillo a chance?
Well, I'm hoping it's both because Facu has wilted a little bit late in games. I've noticed he does fade off a little bit. And 2 games in like 4 days, maybe we're going to give him a rest. It is hot here. But Edwin has looked like Steve Davis in the broadcast. Did you guys watch the broadcast and notice that he mentioned that he thought Edwin looked like a different player the last game?
I remember him saying at the beginning of the game, yeah.
Yeah, between that comment, because, I agree with him on that. And also the way Edwin's looked in training, I actually thought that Edwin was due for a little more game action. I didn't think it was going to mean a start. So I'm hoping that's a combo of go on the road, okay, we could go pure double pivot, with well, not pure because it's still Acosta, but I'm hoping it was a combination of load and giving Edwin a chance because Edwin's looked pretty good and not like Faco stinks. The fact that Faco came back in later for Acosta actually makes me think that it was load management and giving Edwin a chance combo.
Okay. Well,
we'll find out in the next game, Peter, because Acosta's going to be gone. Then we'll know.
Right. And and then the other part is that because clearly LA, took their foot off the gas, you really have no way of really assessing how any of that worked because, LA had kind of had changed all of their, what I'm saying. They had kind of like let go of the game because they clearly were in command at 3-0 and things changed for them. So it's really hard to assess how things were working with Faco or anybody else just because the game had kind of ended itself at that point.
Yeah,
already.
totally.
Yeah. And then, now they've got 10 days to sit around and think about this because there's the break coming up for the Gold Cup this weekend. So they don't play again until the 17th where they have to try to go to Portland. And play there, and then they've got the game 3 or 4 days later in Denver, and then 3 days after that, the Galaxy return, probably with Chicharito in tow. Oy vey. Oh, and then August ends by going to Kansas City.
Yeah, good schedule. Poor Luchi. Nice.
Could you? Yeah, I mean, because do you feel like they've got a chance in hell to win any of those games? They're about to lose their best play. Up until yesterday, the player that was in their best form.
Yeah, the only one. Boy, no, I would have said historically I would have said Colorado, but Colorado's really good now and is well coached. Listen, home field is still home field. So even with Chicharito, Dallas is undefeated at home. So any given home game is your best chance. Now, their home schedule's tough, but the LA Galaxy game of those 3 is the one you probably have a chance to win just because it's at home. That's it. Otherwise, you're toast. Sporting at home is tough, too. I mean, that's, until you get to the San Jose game and Austin at home, those are your best 2. But by then, you're going to have lost 7 more games, so it's going to be bad.
Oy vey. All right. Well, let's move on and talk about what is coming because, not coming. It's here. The transfer window has opened. The breeze is blowing in. And Buzz, you tweeted out the other day, is with all the other stuff going on of people leaving and sneaking out the window like little teenagers to go see their girlfriend, would something come the other way? And do we I don't know.
Here's the thing. It depends on whether you think the coach and the TD are safe. If those guys are safe and their owner thinks they're safe, their owner's going to say, what do you need to fix the season? And so that they're going to go to him with a list and they're going to say, we need a right back so we don't have to play a 17-year-old. We need a wing so we can play like a real team again.
We need 2 wings.
We need 2 wings. Like they're going to have a list internally, those guys, their staff. If the owner backs them, then they'll make some moves. That's how you'll know, really, if those guys are screwed, is if they go through this window with no moves, they're screwed. Because they've got Robertson's going out on loan. Tessman's going to be sold apparently. Reynolds sale's going through. Sealy maybe is going to go to PSV or not, but maybe he is. I don't think Che's going to go this window. I think they'll keep him because they're so desperate for bodies, especially center backs. So that's probably more this winter. Like all the German reports are, it'll happen this winter, right? So that's 4 dudes, maybe 5 if they go ahead and pull the trigger on Che, right? So you got to replace those guys with something, don't you? I mean, you can't have a roster of like 20 people. You got to have.
Are there players they'll call up from North Texas?
Well, you have to sign them. I mean, you could do that. Maybe the answer is they're going to sign some academy guys, sign some North Texas guys, but then that'll be it. That might as well be nothing if you're going to do that, because none of those guys are going to solve your season. So the question would be, do I believe in Zanotta and do I believe in Luchi enough to go out and spend some money, hunt money, relax, not a DP, to sign some bodies? And if they do that, that's an indicator that they believe.
And where those players come from will also be telling.
Yeah.
Because if they're a bunch of Brazilians and South Americans, that Zanotta's probably in some sort of, all right, you've got one more chance, or you're in a perfectly comfortable situation.
Just a couple loans from Gremio or Palmeiras or whatever, get a couple bodies in, see what they can do, It'll be all telling.
Well, not to throw more fuel on this flaming bag of shit, but just think about this list. Luis Gonzalez, Baji, Pablo Arangues, Aguiar, Giassi, Eric Alexander, Agustin Hara, Paparado, Escobar, Samari, Pupicchio, and Eric. All midseason signings for FC Dallas dating back to like 2013. Now, the one good one in there that I didn't throw in, obviously, is Mauro Diaz. But
even you remember, he came hurt, though. You remember he was slow to be impactful. Yeah,
he was.
Escobar was pretty decent.
Escobar was okay. Yeah, and I liked Baji all right. I thought he was okay. As forced trades go, I was okay with that one.
Yeah,
there wasn't great.
Literally a couple of names on here. I don't even remember them.
Yeah, most of those. I didn't remember the Garcia
don't remember
one.
the legendary Cariaco Gonzalez.
No, and then there's another name on here I forgot. No, that guy came in preseason. I thought he was midseason, and he was preseason. It was the Mexican. I think he was Mexican midfielder. Anyway, so my point being is that as much as we, if in fact anybody comes, history tells us it's probably not anything to get too excited about. It may just be simply a body.
Just to play devil's advocate, we talked about them bleeding cash, and suddenly cash is going to start coming in. Maybe the plan was just to run the front end of the season light and try and resurrect the situation in the second half.
Well, they do have an open DP spot. It'll be interesting to see. I did a poll today on the Twitters just for the fun of it to see where people thought, that if Dallas was going to pull a trigger on a DP, where they should do it.
How did that end up, that poll?
It was a pretty mixed bag, but surprisingly, the one that won, I think, was, as I'm trying to call it up, was forward. But I think people meant wing when they were doing it. They didn't mean it's
a Pepe replacement.
One. Yeah, they didn't mean Pepe. They meant a winger. Because that's part of forward.
Because this team's wings suck.
I mean, really, it was 20% people said no thanks, don't do one. But then otherwise, it was like 25 to 27, 28%. So it was tight. I mean, it's everywhere, basically, right? That's the answer. It's everywhere. Can we get one at every position?
It's funny. I'm interested in the people that said no thanks and passed on it. And are people saying no thanks because they just want to see the kids play and they don't care about the season? Is it because they just don't want to be bummed out by whatever piece of crap they roll out and call a DP? That's the one response I don't fully understand.
Most of the responses for no thanks were the season's already a bust. Just wait for a new coach. Some of them were no, play the kids. We're fine. The team's terrible anyway. Just play the kids. Which if you're not going to go for it, that's my thing. Is play the kids.
They're getting ready to let go of 3 or 4 of the kids. Like they're not going to have any kids left to play.
Well, you got Servania. You can keep Che in there. You keep get Paxton in there. Get Jesus in there. I'm still counting those guys as kids. I mean, they got Nicky Hernandez floating around. They got Benny's hurt. Colin Smith. I mean, those kids
all
around.
Right.
But
I do. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, most people seem to say forward, meaning wing. For me, it would be if you're going to spend DP money, I want a Grezzo. I want a legit superstar 6. But, they're not going to do that right after they just bought this guy, Facu, right? And it's not going to be Facu. So I don't think you're going to get a DP mid-season. I think if they're going to get a DP, they're going to wait for whatever's next. But there should be some activity, unless you're going to sell Luchi out and just let him just drive the thing into the ground. You got to give him some bodies, I think.
Well, okay, so let's think about this. Let's talk about the news that you broke the other day that set the internet on fire. Thomas Roberts is leaving. On loan. Free him.
Yeah.
So what is that all? So this is a loan. It's not a sale. It's just to get the kids some time.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, this started percolating back when he went back to Bayern this last time. Like, how Cerrillo and Cervania went to Austria. The same sort of thing was on the cards for Thomas again. This current team even. But Luchi talked him into staying. So they blocked his Bayern loan last year, and they talked him into not taking this one. And then he didn't play a lick. So then now, of course, Thomas's people are like, well, forget you, we're going. So it's going to be a year-long loan. This is a team that's just come up. They saw him enough that they were gangbusters for him. They really, really wanted him. This team does. So that's good for Thomas to go somewhere where the coach and the staff are all like, oh, thank goodness you're here. Listen, the Austrian Bundesliga is not at the bottom end, certainly is not as good as what Major League Soccer is, I don't think. Maybe not even at the top end, despite the fact they get somebody in the Champions League. So good deal for Thomas. Hopefully it actually all comes through. I don't know why it wouldn't, since he's already gone. He's already on his way over there. Just like Tanner left today too. So
let's talk about Tanner's news, which is that Tanner is not going on loan. He's being sold and will leave the team and go to Venezia. Did I say that right, Dan? Venezia. Thank you.
Yeah, cool stadium
in Venice. So
yeah. So Carlisle broke that one that he's being sold. I don't have any of the numbers or any of that stuff. I just was able to confirm that yes, what the reports are true, and he's going. He left today also. So that one's not over the line yet. Let's don't get too crazy. That one's not inked. So that could fall apart. I don't think it's gonna though, or else they wouldn't have leaked it. But whoever leaked it wasn't on my end. So
all right. So I want to ask both of you guys. Yeah. I'll ask Dan first. Dan, do you think it's a good idea for somebody like Tanner, knowing his situation, that he wasn't getting time here, what his skill level is, what his upside is, do you think going to play in the midfield in a newly promoted Serie A team is a good idea for your career path?
I mean, it's a gamble for sure. In Serie A, that type of player can really succeed. But I mean, what's the alternative? Stay and watch your stock slowly drop in. He's been dropped from the team. Missed the Gold Cup roster, so the shop window was at least being pushed further back.
Yeah. Buzz, what do you think?
Well, my understanding is that they quite like him, and they really put on like a hard sell, like we really want you to come here. And so that kind of confidence is really good. Like one thing that I've said lots of times about these kids when they go is if you go somewhere where the coach didn't pick you, or like the owner picked you, or the technical director picked you, and the coach is like, I didn't ask for this guy, you're hosed, right? So hopefully this is a situation where the coaching staff has some sort of plan. I don't know if he'll walk in and start. I really don't know anything about the circumstances other than the fact they just got promoted. I mean, what a cool looking venue, and apparently they're getting some big, brand new, awesome stadium or something. So they must have some money to spend. Maybe they're looking to build like a core roster, and maybe they see him more as like a guy we bring in now, and he kind of is in our system for a season or two, and we try and make him into something. They must think highly of him, I'm not sure. I don't know why you spend $3 million if you don't think it's pretty decent. They're not that rich.
Well, I'm thinking about Brian Reynolds' situation and the video today of him with his first Jose Mourinho training, and how he's gotten his choice to go to Roma versus going to the Belgian club that really wanted him has now put him in a really weird spot. And I think about what if Thomas's situation was being purchased? Like just getting yourself into the right situations. And this is easy for me to say. I'm not the guy trying to make a soccer career, but putting yourself in the right situation. I always think back to the Breck Shea, taking the deal to go to Stoke, which was everybody knew was the dumbest thing that kid could have ever done. And it essentially ended his career in many ways. Or at least it killed the trajectory of his career, I should say. And so I think about Tanner getting himself in this situation, and you could just see him getting stuck on a team in a relegation battle, and oh my gosh, and that could really put a real dent in your career path. But I don't know if he had any other opportunities to go anywhere else, and he's a guy that's like, look, I just got to get out of here. I just want to go to Europe, so I'll take whatever deal's on the table.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about the money or the situation in the team. One of the things about playing in Serie A, even if you're on a bad team, is everyone's going to see you, right? All those other European teams are going to see you play in Serie A. It's not like with Thomas going. I think Thomas is going to be in a league where he's going to really look like a superstar with his ball skill and passing ability to break lines and all that kind of stuff.
But isn't that the better path? Isn't that
well, it is for Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Thomas needs a chance to play and to show and be in an environment where he looks like he's the deal. Whereas Tanner already has gotten the national team cap. You've already seen him in MLS. Okay, what's something that can expose me even more? And one of the top 5 leagues is it. Even if you're in a relegation battle, if you can get onto the field, people are going to see you. So Tanner's betting on himself, clearly. But that dude's got tons of confidence. He's a level-headed kid. Super smart, good people around him, very solid in terms of his mentality and his focus. I mean, think about it. He came here when he was 14 by himself.
Yeah.
He came here and lived with, I can't remember who he lived with, but he's been living here since he was 14 on his own, right? So that's a very mature kid. So he's betting on himself, and he comes from that. He's got the Dabo Sweeney vibe around him, as his godfather. I'm sure he's got mojo, if you know what I mean. So I'm not at all worried about him in this environment. Actually, I think this is the kind of thing where he'll thrive, and it'll just be the step for him. I don't think he thinks it's the answer.
There's kind of a smart thing as well in going to a lower side. He can be the moderate sized fish in a smaller pond.
Wait, are we talking about Tessman in the Serie A or Thomas in Austria? Okay.
But, we saw it with Brian, the talk about if, the sale to Juventus, they would have had to have had someone else technically buy him and then sell him on. Because they can only do that to foreign players from a foreign league in a season. Well, by going to Venezia, he's got his license there, right? He's effectively an Italian player now, so any other team in Serie A buys him and he doesn't count as a foreign player anymore. He might count on the game day rosters, but he doesn't count against their transfers. So, he's kind of like a good flip for Venezia if he really pans out.
Yeah, think about how the U.S. coaches look at Europe over domestic too. Like just being in that squad means you're like on a different point of view.
Yeah. So. Well, again, I don't know if he had any other opportunities or what. I mean, I certainly hope it all works out for Tanner, and he's probably in a better situation, and I hope he makes more money and all that stuff. So let me ask you about 2 more, Buzz. Let's real quickly. You mentioned Che. He came back, and there was this sense that Bayern wanted to buy him, and now is this just a situation where poor Justin's a little in a bad situation because his club needs him, and so he's going to be here for a bit?
I mean, not very long. Bayern wanted to buy him, and Dallas wants a little more money, but they also wanted to play him some. They felt like they needed him. And we've talked before about how Bayern's reserve team, they don't play in the U23 Bundesliga. They play in the senior ranks. So they were in Bundesliga 3. But they just got relegated. So that team that Che would play in is going to be like playing in the regional leagues or something. So like for him to go back over there right now, and then listen, if he was in Bayern first team practice, that'd be awesome. But I doubt he would have been. I mean, Richards is, but I doubt Che would have been. He would be playing in this regional 4th division against. It would be like playing in the NPSL, relatively speaking. Like MLS, what he's doing right now is better than that. So. All the stuff in the German press, Bayern's happy to leave him here for now because he is playing. If he wasn't playing, it'd be different. I'm surprised he's playing this much, but here we are. So I think if you read all the quotes, there's all this stuff about, oh, we're happy for now. We'll look at him again in the winter. He's going to go this winter. That's when it's going to be. It'll just be, he's going to kick it around here. He's going to play some games, and then Dallas will sell him this winter when they're going to rebuild. It's a last place team, or it's going to be a last place team. They're going to have to rebuild the whole roster. That's when they'll sell him. It'll be fine. It's really going to gut this team. Yeah,
I'm just so looking forward to that. All right, and then what about Dante Seeley?
Yeah, as far as I know, that whole I had heard discussion that he was going to be moving this window, and then he went on that thing. I couldn't believe he posted that picture. By the way, I was like, "What a dope!"
Oh, when he was at PSV?
Yeah, when he went on that training stand or whatever, I was like, "What is he doing?" Because the window's not open yet, so it's like, where's he going? I assumed it was sort of like a last check on him to see how he fits. Now, if he goes, I'm assuming he's gonna. I'm sure he hasn't played very much lately. I'm sure that they'll put him in their 23 team or something. But as far as I know, that's as on as it ever was. And what I had heard was there was a chance at a loan there. So, I mean, he's been there multiple times on training stints. Surely they would have known by now whether they liked him or not. So they must like him, I guess. So, I mean, I'm anticipating that he would be. I've been anticipating he was going to move this window for 5 years. The window after he turned 18, I figured he's gone. Mm-hmm. So I'm just waiting for that one to happen. I'm actually really surprised it hasn't happened, to be honest with you.
Well, now I don't know what to say. It's going to be interesting as we and window closes when.
Oh, I didn't look. Yeah, I mean,
Dan, do you know when the window closes? You always know these little weird details. Weird, I say.
Like a couple weeks before the roster freeze or something.
Yeah, something like that. So they've got a month or so to figure this out, right?
These are the European primary windows. These are your big windows before the season, and it even runs up into the season a little bit. The MLS window would be shorter, but that's about incoming players, not outgoing.
Oh, sorry. Then it should be September 1st.
Right.
Oh, so there's a long while. All right. Yeah. Well, September 1st. Oh, right for the rush. Okay, so, Buzz, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is completely off the rail and a completely different subject, but I have to give you credit because when this was enacted, you made a claim that I scoffed at. There's no way they'll ever agree to stick with this, which is the change from 3 subs to 5 subs. And I'm seeing this growing support for how much people, quote unquote, love 5 substitutions in a game. And it drives me batshit crazy. I think it's the worst change to the game in a really long time. And I don't know if this is a generational thing. I don't know what it is. But you were the one that said, yep, once they do this, it's going to be you're never going to get them to go back. And I do wonder, does everybody, are you on good with 5 subs now? Or
Oh, no, I hate it.
Yeah, I do too.
It's the worst thing ever. Yeah, it's awful. Yeah,
Dan, what do you think about it?
That's crap.
You like it?
No, it's crap.
Oh, it's crap. I thought you said that's
they made the point in the England game the other day. I know you've made the point a bunch of times, but in the England game, because you get an extra one in extra time, they were
you get 6.
He was like, this is insane. You can literally change more than half of your team. That makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it bails out poor coaching and poor roster management, right? Listen, soccer, historically speaking, I talked about it earlier in the podcast, you couldn't coach and there were no subs. It was a player's game. Adjustments were made on the field by the players. The reason that it's called a gaffer is because he was a trainer. A gaffer means a person who tapes things, right? The reason they call them managers is because they managed crap and brought the balls. They weren't coaches, right?
They were managers because they managed the transfers.
Right. They weren't coaches. You didn't coach. You weren't allowed to coach during the game. It was about the players. And then they added a sub because a guy would get hurt. And so that's quality of the game. I get it. They added 1 and then it was 2 and then it was 3. That never goes backwards. Now that it's 5, I know England went backwards. Thank goodness they did because maybe that'll save it. But we're now at 5 and it's stupid. It's like you can literally change the whole game. If you screw up your team, you can change half the team and completely transform your team and the game. I hate it.
Well, and here's the thing. If you're in a salary cap league like Major League Soccer that theoretically has some parity, I do think you could make the argument that it is less impactful. But I was making this point the other day about the England-Denmark game, which was Gareth Southgate subbed in Liverpool's captain, Man City's best young player, an 80 million plus pound attacker, and then replaced that guy with a La Liga championship defender. And then Denmark, on the other hand, essentially subbed in Fulham's best player and a couple of guys from Brentford and two other guys you've never heard of before and a Leipzig striker. And the gap in the depth of talent was epic in that game, and that was in many ways a byproduct of how England was able to win that game because of that particular rule.
You can cover up unfit players. You can cover up guys that are hurt. You can effectively, at halftime, you can literally bring in a whole new side almost. It's like at some point there's little difference between where we are now and the ability to just change anybody you want in the whole team.
Well, that's always my question is, okay, if you're happy with 5, then why not 6, or why not whatever? Like what's stopping you from doing on the fly subs like indoor soccer?
Right. I mean, listen, like on the fly subs would be crazy, changing everybody would be crazy. But like you say, what's the difference between 5 and 6 or 5 and 7? And the reason that the Premier League voted against it and went backwards is because all the poor teams know that all the rich teams will crush them because they can bring in a whole bunch of more players, and they bring in guys that are superstars of the game that are worth $100 million, and they're bringing in some stiff worth 1,000. So it's like, it's not fair to the teams that don't have big, huge, humongous superstar rosters. So again, that's why I hate it. Like if you like FC Dallas, you should hate this rule, because Dallas has a shallow roster in the sense that they have a bunch of kids, right? Or they're not any good. It's like you go against Seattle and they got guys coming in that are like, compared to Dallas's guys, are worth 10 times as much money or whatever. It's like, it's the same scenario as being a poor team in England. Dallas is a quote poor team and don't spend money. You should hate this rule if you're a Dallas fan.
Yeah. I will say it'll probably cap out at 6 if they do increase it again, because that's the cap on international games. But if the IFAB, which a fifth of it is England,
right?
If they do kind of have to have that rubber stamp and not just keep doing extension after extension, then hopefully this crappy nightmare will go away.
Go England, yeah.
Yeah, I know things change over time and rules, people's attitudes change and there's modifications to the game and it's and this and that, but with water breaks and multiple substitutions and all that stuff, it just feels like a very different game, and I don't know. And that's why I always want to make, with so many people that are supporting it and liking it, I'm just trying to figure out what it is about it that they like. I that's the part I can't figure out, which is, like, oh, the games are more exciting. Are they really more? I don't, like, you're missing out on all the wear and tear and players having to, fight through, and that's always been a part of the game that's now missing in many ways.
The ability to go 90 minutes matters. That's what the game, at a lot of levels, that's what the game at its core is about. The play and the whole thing. Colin Clark used to say the difference between a fit team and an unfit team is the last 10 minutes, because when you get tired, your brain goes off.
Right.
You make mental mistakes. That's why fitness matters. So it's like,
you look at like every classic FA Cup giant killer, and it's always been exactly that. The team in the higher division is trained better. Their players are better in that last 10 minutes. Can the little guy hold on? That's the drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, can they bring in 4 more players?
I was thinking of the England game in Sterling. Like, the fact that dude was still beating people to the ball and out-racing people 119 minutes into the game, I thought was phenomenal. It was fantastic. And that to me is the epitome of a soccer player. And I don't know that, and again, it's a generational thing, I suppose, and I'm yelling at a cloud or whatever, but
get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Amen.
I fully agree. Even from the same game, like the Jack Grealish situation, he was carrying an injury. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to see him. He's a great player, but a coach shouldn't go into it saying, well, I can use a sub on him, and then, if he's kind of feeling it, I'll just bring him back out. I've got
right. You sub a guy that is wanted, for however millions of dollars, and you sub him in with a guy that was playing on the best team in La Liga as a defender. That just seems totally unfair.
Yeah, think about this in MLS. I've seen a dude sub in, and then that same dude gets subbed out. when in the world would you have ever seen that short of some catastrophic injury?
I've seen it happen 3 times in games I've been to, and all 3 times that player no longer worked for that team after that day.
Yeah. I mean, that's the level of bad it would have to be.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, what game was I watching? They brought in a guy in order to try and get a goal back. They scored the goal, and so they subbed him back out, put it back in a defensive guy. I'm like, that's stupid. That's not soccer. That's dumb. That's a different game.
Well, that's indoor.
Yeah, it's indoor. That's exactly right. I was like, this is not soccer. What are you doing to my game? Get off my lawn.
But now we're talking indoor. John's favorite game. You just took John's tone.
I know. I'm crying because I hate it.
You did start sounding like a little bit of, you had a little John.
Yeah. I hate
John
it so much.
It is nuts. I don't get it. And maybe it's going to happen whether no matter how much we fight. Buzz, you and I standing side by side as the wall, they're going to defeat us and overrun us.
They're not going. It's not going backwards, I don't think, unless the English save us.
And by the way, I just wanted to comment, Dan, about the English game. My favorite part of that game was that passage of about 4 minutes, starting at about 115th minute, when England just kept the ball. I don't know how many passes consecutive they completed. It must have been 45, 47 passes. And despite the fact that they had multiple opportunities to play wide open guys in the box and add another goal, they smartly just kept it and just killed off the game. And that was the most beautiful thing I had seen out of a soccer team in a long time, because I love when a team just keeps the ball away.
I just liked it when they teased the run to the corner and then recycled the ball again.
Yeah.
You could just see the fullbacks getting pissed off.
Oh, it was great. Kyle Walker made that one run before they pushed him back into as a third center back, and you could tell, he wanted to do his thing, but something in his head went, nope, Gareth told me to do this instead, so I'm going to do this, and it was a thing of beauty. So sorry if you're a Danish fan. I just that particular scenario in the game, we just don't see teams do that enough and see games out smartly and be smart about the game. And inevitably somebody gets greedy and tries to score, and what does that happen? That turns into a counterattack where some team that doesn't deserve to win gets some goofy goal at the end and changes the whole thing. So kudos to England for seeing the game out properly. All right, anything else that we want to talk about this evening before shutting up the shop?
Well, I just want to point out that Ricardo Pepi has 6 starts and has played a total just barely over 6 games if you count by 90 minutes. He has 5 goals in 6 games on 12 shots on target. That's half. And he has 7 key passes to go with it. All aboard, bro. Get on board now.
Well, he needs somebody to feed him the ball, so hopefully Jesus plays better. And I will point out my own stat. Somebody else had done this about their team, so I looked it up over on FOTMob. Their highest-ranked FC Dallas player in all of their rating, if they do a match rating, the highest-ranked FC Dallas player is Brian Acosta at number 46. Now, you think to yourself, okay, well, that makes sense. The next highest player for Dallas on the list is their left back, Ryan Hollingshead, at number 92, and everybody else falls into the pit of sub 100.
Yeah, that's about right. Talking about the whole season. I buy it.
That's sad. There are literally players in the top 20 that play for Nashville, Cincinnati. That Acosta guy for Cincinnati's like in the top 5.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, I know, but my point is Dallas can't even break top 20 or 30 or 40.
Yeah, Nashville's pretty good too.
Wow. All right. Real quick story to close this up. I was asked on Twitter if I knew of a good place to get Premier League gear around the area. And previously, the answer would always be, you know what, it's kind of hard to find really good Premier gear, club gear. Especially locally. You kind of go online, and that's difficult too. But you know what? Now I had an answer for Zoe. I said, Zoe, meet soccer90.com, soccer90.com, meet Zoe. And so I'm sure Zoe's going to get her some Norwich stuff from our favorite store, which is, because that's who Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by. And it's the great place at soccer90.com to get all your FC Dallas, your Norwich, your U.S. national team, and international club gear. They got it all. And don't forget, because you are a beautiful Third Degree listener, you get 25% off your order. Just use the code Third Degree at checkout at soccer90.com. Well, Dan, again, congratulations on the big win, and I'm rooting for you on Sunday when you guys go up against the Italians.
Thank you, and it really tickles me the way you both said Norwich.
I said Norwich.
Norwich.
How do you say it?
Norwich.
You say Norwich?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't think my canary-loving fans would agree with you on that one, sir.
As the one that's actually spent a lot of time in Norwich, I'll
Norwich.
Please, I've never been there. I know way more than you.
Hey, Buzz, good stuff. Sorry you had to suffer through watching that game on delay again this week. I know that's not fun to do when you know how bad. I know when you know going into it that it's going to be a giant shit fire.
Yeah.
That's never fun.
Well, first, that was an amazing ad-libbed promo you did. Also, number two, it is my job and sometimes
I am
to
a
watch
professional.
these things. Yeah, right. And number three, it's like I was watching that game. People go into these raging fires about games. I watched that game and I'm like, this is the same team that's been fed all year. It's like that game didn't look any different than all the other crap games they've had. So it wasn't shocking. Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but it's on the road. They suck on the road. You know, there was individual mistakes that's been happening lately. It's just it looked like a team that's not very good. I mean, I don't know what. It wasn't any worse than anything else that we've been watching lately.
Well, the good news is when we do a podcast next week, they will not have lost a game.
Yes.
So there's the good news to look forward to. All right. Thank you, FC Dallas curious fan. Hopefully you're still curious. We will speak to you next week in another edition of Third Degree, the podcast.
It's coming home.
Bye, Thomas.
Thomas is not coming home.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.